Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Spartan Beat. Today, we're here to talk about the Northwestern game, preview the Youngstown State game, and talk about some NIL. I'm Justin Thin, and I'm here with my co-host Corey Robinson. Corey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, so good win for Michigan State up there in Evanston. I know most people thought that Michigan State had the talent to win that game, but I know with it being week one and a lot of moving parts, a lot of people didn't expect it to have that big of a scoring margin. I know I was saying last week that I feel like the talent level was that big of a disparity as the score ended up showing, but I still thought that it would end up being closer just because. But I'm glad to see that was not the case. I guess we can dive into some of the things that we noticed. I know obviously Kenneth Walker's game is the first observation that comes to everybody's mind, and I know to both of us that's not a surprise at all because that's what we've known since January 7th that he would do ever since he committed. But I guess, yeah, you can start talking a little bit about Kenneth Walker and just, I don't know what's left that hasn't been said yet by people out there, but what did you see watching that game and just kind of seeing him take off?
I saw them have a star running back in the backfield, which they haven't had in a while. It's just the guy that everybody in the stadium knew he was getting the ball on many occasions. And it didn't matter. He still would make the plays, bounce it outside. He's got that jump cut that's pretty similar to Le'Veon Bell and Cedric Irvin Sr., like where he's just so patient of a runner, runs with good power, vision. He's a total package, which is what we were telling everybody the entire thing. But then, obviously, I give a lot of credit to the offensive line as well. I had talked to the coaches after the game, and I told them that I think I could have averaged 5 yards on the ground to carry just because of the holes that the offensive line was making, and that's just something like I don't remember Michigan State doing in years to create the holes that they were making.
Yeah, what Coach Cap has done with the offensive line and in just one real off season is remarkable, and it's pretty much what everyone was expecting once they looked at his resume, once they saw what he did in North Carolina. And it wasn't going to be an easy task though, because as we know, Michigan State hasn't recruited many true tackles in recent years. The offense line wasn't where it used to be back when they were making Rose Bowls and playoff games, but a huge reason that they were able to make that upgrade was obviously Jarrett Horst, who by all accounts seemed like he had a good game. I don't think I watched him on every single play, but anytime that there was a successful run and you kind of end up isolating him and seeing what his deal was on the runs, he was just doing his job, blocking away, and I didn't really notice that many pressures being let in from the left side, at least when he was in. I know Luke Campbell got some run in there, so it's good to see him healthy and back. I know Matt Allen and Nick Samak were rotating there with Nick's hand kind of cut. So yeah, seems like they got a lot of offensive linemen in there, which Cap had always said would be something he would look to do as long as there wouldn't be a huge drop off moving on to the next guy. And so I kind of like that they were getting a lot of guys in there because it's football and injuries happen, and you're gonna need to develop your entire roster. And anytime you get a chance, you go ahead and take that, and you go ahead and do that. And I don't know if it was expected that it would come against Northwestern, but it's good that it did. And now they have another similar game like that this week that we'll talk about later, but. A lot of guys were able to get in, and that was also the case on defense. So what did you kind of see with the defensive rotations?
Yeah, they definitely rotated heavy there. I think the defensive backs, they didn't rotate as much, especially Gross and Xavier Henderson at the safety spots. And then they kind of ran Ronald Williams and what's his name, Kalen Gervin, who played a really good game. They played most of it. Most of the rotation and the secondary was between Michael Dowell and Darius Snow, and I thought both of those guys played well. They did what you wanted to, come up and support against the run. and not give up much on the passing game. I don't really recall either of them really having any issues defending the pass, so that went really well. On the defensive line, you saw quite a bit of rotating, keeping guys fresh. I don't remember how many they played. I think it was like 8 or 9 defensive linemen, I believe. Saw action in it. So that was good. Linebacker, ton of rotation. I think uh, Cal Halliday, who we kind of hinted at starting, maybe we even said he was starting. I don't remember the last show. Uh, that I thought he played amazing, especially when you think of it being his first game. I thought he got everybody lined up well, and then he himself individually played a great, fantastic game. So you see why he was able to push past Noah Harvey, who I believe is maybe a 3-year starter, 2.5-year starter, something like that. So to be able to take that job from him, who Noah Harvey was a guy that we pretty much all like penciled in that he was going to be a starter just because he had been for so long, and we thought, oh, his knowledge of the defense is too important to take out. And then you see Cal Halliday come in there in his first game as a starter and act like he was the veteran. So that's a great thing to see from him for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, you got who else played? You had Crouch was out there. I thought he played a lot more physical and attacking than what we saw with some of his issues at Tennessee. So you've already seen some of that payoff from the coaching at Michigan State and the expectation of how you're going to play physical. I thought he did a better job of making contact instead of trying to go around it. He almost had that strip sack there. Next time, I think he'll probably smack that ball even harder to try and get it out. But I thought he was good. Ben Van Sumeren was good when he was out there. Noah Harvey played a good game when he was out there. So, I mean, just overall, I think there wasn't a lot of things that you took away bad. Uh, I would say if you're getting nitpicky on defense, like I would like to see a more consistent pass rush where they showed flashes of it so you know that it's possible. I believe they finished with I believe 4 sacks off the top of my head. But they had drives where they were getting constant pressure. But then you had those drives where the quarterback had all day so to operate and found some of his receivers open. And then I guess maybe Ronald Williams, you want him to lock down a little bit more than that. A few of them, I won't put on him. I think that late touchdown was basically, the perfect throw and everything. You couldn't really do anything there. The the slant on 3rd down or 4th down and 5, where he gave up 6. Like you got it, can't give up the inside there. You know that's coming.
Hmm.
So I'll put that one on him for sure. And then the deep ball, obviously. But a lot of it, I think, a lot of the success that Hunter Johnson had was when he had a very clean pocket and time to just scan the field through all of it and go through progressions and wait for guys to get open.
Yeah, I think I'll add two more throws in there. One was an in route that was about 10 or 12 yards deep that Ronald kind of was flat-footed on, and corner made a sharp left turn in. I mean, the receiver did, and it was an easy 12 to 15-yard catch there. And then there was also a comeback route where Michigan State had Northwestern at its own one after that great punt from Bryce Behringer. He was laying back on the coverage, and the comeback route he was flat-footed on, and that was Northwestern got out of the goal line. So I would definitely like to see some improvement from him. But like you were saying, it's like the first week, and these guys are probably just trying not to get beat deep on some of these routes. So they're playing conservative, especially when the game there's a bigger lead. So yeah, I'm not counting anyone out. Or just after week 1, that would be foolish to do. Good or bad, I think all expectations should stay tempered after week 1. So yeah, I think Kalen Gervin played one of his better games at Michigan State.
Gave up that early one,
Yeah,
the early
right,
deep one, but then after that, I don't think he really gave up anything the rest
yeah,
of the game, and
right,
he came up
yeah,
and was physical. And then too, I
physical.
guess another thing too is not only was that back seven pretty much completely new outside of Xavier Henderson, because I mean, even you look at Angelo Gross, he moved from box to free safety, so that's a new position. And I guess you got Kalen there too, who played a decent amount last year. Uh, so you're rotating that. Plus, Michigan State was making so many rotations in the linebacker. uh, that group. So I mean, you're really having a lot of guys feeling out playing with each other for the first time in a real game setting. It's a lot different when the lights come on as opposed to running what you're supposed to run in practice.
Yeah, and even on that one pass that Gervin did give up early on, it's the same issue that's been present for the last couple of years. It's he doesn't find the ball when it's in the air. He was close enough, and the coverage was good to the point where there's a chance he could have batted it down. But I would just like to see him occasionally find the ball when it's in the air, and that's just been my whole thing with him throughout his career is even on his best day, that a game that nobody would complain about. That one trait just doesn't seem to be there, and the ball skills are what have gotten him in trouble in the past couple of years. And he's not a guy that just gets beat and looks lost out there. Like he can cover people. It's just that a lot of times, even when he has good coverage, they're still catching him because he's not locating the ball or putting his hands up right when their hands go up. So, like I said, that's nitpicking. It was a good game, but yeah, like that trait right there is what I think is always going to have like a ceiling on his potential in my eyes, and that's kind of the reason why I would like to see Ronald Williams kind of be this cornerback one as the year goes on and find himself, because that's just a habit I don't see Kalen breaking. But yeah, I mean, he's solid, and you can't have too many complaints, especially if he has games like that. But yeah, I would just like to see somebody really take a step up and even possibly be better than Kalen, and then you have a real solid back seven. But seems like some breaking news here while we were live is the fact that they might be getting rid of Thunderstruck for the song that they get that the song they play when the school comes out of the tunnel. And what has been hinted here is the Michigan State official football account tweeted a picture of the tunnel, and in this picture they say it says, "This Saturday we surf," and surf is in all caps. There's a wave and surfboard emoji. So I'm assuming, reading this, that the new song would be Swag Surfin'. But we will see if that's the case here on Saturday. But I know a lot of people have been hoping that Thunderstruck would be replaced, and I think there were some people that were in favor of it. I don't know any of those people, but I think there were some out there. But yeah, so that'll be interesting to monitor on Saturday. And I know I heard earlier today that they were looking to get rid of Thunderstruck, and this tweet kind of confirms that, I would say, especially with the tunnel element. So Corey, any thoughts on that possibility?
Yeah, I'll wait to see what the new song is, if it is that. But yeah, I'm not. I was probably in favor of changing the song for the last decade or so.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it wasn't like Virginia Tech where Enter Sandman is just who they are or whatever, jump around at Wisconsin. Like, I don't think we ever, as a fan base, especially the student section, like, would embrace Thunderstruck and make that like who we are. And for me, I've always said it's got to be about the players, and I mean that's not getting anybody excited in the tunnel. Like maybe some of the coaches, like I don't know, maybe Cap likes it, but like none of the players are gonna be like, sweet, this song's on. So I mean, and everything you want, like every edge you get them pumped up. So I think it'll be exciting to see that they're open to new possibilities potentially, and that we might see some changes and update it. Because I've always been in favor of making, and we actually heard Alan Haller talk about making it better for the fans and stuff like that. And I mean, as a college event, there's a lot of college students. You want your student section to be your loudest section, so those are the type of people you want to really cater to,
Right.
in my opinion. So yeah, freshening up the introduction would be good. And like you said, hopefully they update the LED boards soon, which I think they've kind of hinted at too. So then you can see a lot more happening during introductions, especially in night games. But yeah, so I guess that'll be something to stay tuned to on Saturday on what they end up doing there.
Yeah, definitely. Back to the Northwestern game here. So I guess the other thing that's worth talking about is the fact that, as we both knew, Peyton Thorne ended up starting the game. And what had kind of happened was he kind of led for most of the camp, and Russo started having he had a really solid final scrimmage, and then there was some uncertainty there on who really would end up winning, but we kind of found out on, I want to say,
At least a week and a half or 2 weeks before the game. I think it's a week and
right.
a half.
I think the team was told Friday, and that's when you kind of told me that it's worth checking around. And then I want to say Saturday is kind of when when I got the final confirmation, and that's when you also heard it some more. So that's kind of the timeline there. And then it was at least a week before. So yeah, that was kind of expected, but what wasn't exactly something that anybody knew is how Peyton Thorne would do. And in that regard, I guess I'll kind of go first and share my take on it. But I was really impressed with his overall performance. The worries that I had with whoever started the game was possibly trying to do too much just because they are fresh out of a battle and want to hold their job, and just trying to make impossible throws and put up huge numbers. And he didn't do that. He was calm, composed, took the easy throw when it was there, didn't do too much, and that was great to see. He seemed poised in the pocket, moved around a little bit, moved up in the pocket on some throws, used his feet, and pretty much no complaints on a broad scale. But since I don't want to just have all positives, I would say that on two throws that you saw that I can see from the stadium, he wasn't seeing guys that were wide open, even when they were on the side that he was rolling out to, and those receivers were right behind the receiver he ended up throwing to. The one that I kind of posted about on the message board was a rollout to the left, and he ended up throwing to Jalen Naylor on a flat route, about 4 or 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, but 15 to 18 yards past the line of scrimmage on the same exact side, right behind Naylor, was Connor Hayward running a corner route wide open, nobody within like 10, 15 yards of him, and he would have walked into the end zone because he probably would have caught that around the 30-yard line. And walked in. So that would have made it 28-0. Instead, it ended up being 21-7 on the next drive. So, I mean, you can always find a few plays like that to complain about, but at the end of the day, if your only like main complaint about a quarterback is the fact that he didn't make a throw to make it an even bigger blowout, then the chances are is that guy had a good game. And there's not a quarterback out there where you won't find a throw or a play or two to kind of criticize. So overall, very pleasantly pleased, and I don't think there's any reason for me to think that they made the wrong call with who they chose as the starter. I guess I'll give you the floor now to kind of give your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought a couple other ones that he might have missed that he should have made was
some deep throws too. My bad.
One deep throw with Naylor.
Yes.
And then
right.
that one where Naylor, the play design was really sweet, where they had him like cut across the, like almost like an end around, but hit him with a pass, and he had to make that because had he made that pass, Naylor was probably gone. I don't know if that was the same play you saw Hayward open on, but yeah, like those two plays.
Actually,
like
you're
were
right.
home run plays, like had he made those hits. But then that's something too where you think about it when you are in a quarterback competition and you're splitting reps with the ones and the twos, like you were with Russo. So now it's going to take a little bit of timing, to get your timing down with the Nailers and that. Where, as you may have known, him and Reed have played together since high school, but actually middle school. So for them it was easy, and that's the guy that you saw him really comfortable with. I don't think he missed any throws with Reed where they weren't on the same page or the timing wasn't right, and that's just a product of knowing each other and playing together a lot, where you'll see that as the season builds with Thorne when it goes with Naylor. Mosley, I thought, had a really good game. Like, that was definitely his best game at Michigan State. He did some great things, but I think you'll see that chemistry with the other receivers keep building as the season goes on, just because now he's getting all of those first team reps with the guys. So I think you'll see growth there but I didn't see anything from him where you're like, oh no, this isn't what we need. I think everything was there, and there's a good sense that he can be better than he was. Not that he was bad, but you can see that the offense is going to continue to evolve and grow with him, just with all the different things he can do with his legs or just opening up the total playbook. You can run RPO, you can run pistol, you can do a lot more stuff than you would have been able to do with Russo, who's your classic throwback pocket passer. And then, I mean, I think not Russo, Thorne in this game did what I thought he did with Penn State and Ohio State, where he reads the ball quick and gets the ball out quickly and on time most of the time. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see the growth of the offense with Thorne. I thought he showed enough to make you get excited for what the possibilities are with the passing game to go with what looks like is going to be a strong running game as well.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know what exactly their plan was coming into the game about if they wanted to have like both quarterbacks play or what the whole deal was there, and maybe their plan was to give Thorne a short leash and maybe bring Russo in the second half. But all I know is I'm glad that they didn't play any sort of quarterback roulette. Maybe that was never the plan, and even more credit to them. And I don't want them to kind of have the younger guys starting and then pulling him if they don't move the ball for 4 drives or something like that. Because if you pull the younger guy, you're probably going to be messing with his head to a greater extent, and he's probably going to think that like you've lost faith in him. Now, if Russo was the one starting, I'd be okay with a short leash there. But for Thorne, I would kind of wanted to have seen him just get a very long leash if that's the guy that decided to go without a camp. But he ended up playing well, and that wasn't even something that they needed to consider to begin with. But that was kind of my only fear going into the game, as we knew that Thorne was starting, is I hope that this kid gets a long leash, because you don't need a situation like where you pull the kid after an interception and 3 stall drives, and suddenly he's messed up in the head for like the next like 6-7 weeks because of it. So all in all, great job handling the battle in camp. The great job handling the battle in the first week by the coaching staff, and thought coaching staff did a good job keeping it under wraps too. I know some people started hinting that it was Thorne as it got closer, but nothing to the point where people could get multiple forms of confirmation and run a story and get it out there to Evanston. But just no complaints so far early in week one. Even just in game, I thought the coaching was good. I know Mel was coaching with 48 seconds left, yelling at players to play till the final whistle. I think Jay Johnson called a good game, a balanced game, put people in a position to succeed. I always thought that once you gave him a real quarterback and actually gave him time to throw, he would be a guy that could scheme players into positions to succeed. I know he's never had like a revolutionary top 15 offense or anything like that, but he just seems like a guy that really knows football and just kind of makes these little tweaks that you would notice guys kind of accelerate and kind of have some increased production once you saw some increased kind of talent level around his offense, and he's kind of finally gotten that. He's able to run the ball and move the ball. He's able to mix it up, use play action to effectiveness, as opposed to having no threat from the play action because the guy was only going to run for 2 yards, even if it was a run. So that whole thing of him finally having talent and now bringing production to his offense is something that I expect to be a consistent storyline throughout the year. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on the game plan and Jay Johnson and anything like that.
Yeah, I thought he had a great game plan. And another thing to factor in too from last year to this year, outside of the talent or lack of running, which is obvious stuff, is like not having winter conditioning, not having spring ball, and having a shotgun fall camp. You really didn't get to put your offense in. Like you were just trying to get the guys to pick up the basic uh, bottom floor of the offense. Like you weren't trying any exotic things. You're just trying to get an offense put together where you can go out there. So I think that played a huge role too, is just letting the guys, being able to actually have an off season and create the offense as a team together rather than just having to lump it out there and say this is what we had time to practice because we didn't have it. So I think that's definitely another factor. But then too, that's why when we talked last week how when we talked about what we liked about Thorne and Russo, and with Thorne I talked about like last year in the Penn State game and uh, the Ohio State game, even though it was over when he came in. Like that was the only time I felt like I ever saw the offense run like
Hmm.
that, because you saw flow, you saw everybody getting involved, you saw the middle of the field getting attacked, the sides, deep, you know, everything looked different when he was in there, even being, not ready necessarily as a freshman. But yeah, I think with Jay Johnson, you're gonna see wrinkles each week going in, and I think like you mentioned having the parts. I mean, you have Connor Hayward, who I've been hard on. Like he
Yeah.
played an amazing game as a tight end, especially when you factor and it was his first game at tight end H back.
Hmm.
I thought he blocked well. The second Kenneth Walker touchdown, he made two blocks on the edge to allow Kenneth Walker, who's sitting there waiting for it, to pop outside. So
Hmm.
you give him credit there. Plus, he made some good catches. Uh, so I mean, with him, you can do a lot of things. Connor Hayward, that is. Uh, in the offense, and even like Harold Joyner. I don't think we saw it against Northwestern, but he's a guy. I think that was one of the throws Thorne might have missed too, as he had Harold Joyner out on a good pass play. But Harold Joyner is gonna kind of be like what the old Connor Hayward was, where you can
Hmm.
line him up in the backfield and get him the ball in the passing game. But he's got obviously a lot more juice than Connor has, so you'll see those plays getting a little bit bigger. So I think the personnel is really going to allow them to do a lot. Courtney Hawkins, he's done a great job with the wide receivers, where he's teaching the guys, to play all the line or the wide receiver positions, just so you can move guys around, and it makes it so much harder to scheme when you can do that. So yeah, I think the offense is probably what I was most excited about watching, that just because this, as anyone that's been watching Michigan State, you know,
Yeah.
it's a fan base that's been starving for like, you don't have to be Oregon in the peak time or Baylor
Hmm.
back in that thing, but you want to at least have a good looking offense that's enjoyable to watch, and I think you're seeing that start to come together.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, offense going reviews there. And then I wanted to touch on something from back you were mentioning about defense and the pass rush is definitely a concern for me because even though they had 4 sacks, I believe all 4 of them came from linebackers or safeties. And when it was they were just rushing 4 guys, they were not getting good pressure on the ball, in my opinion. And I know Northwestern has a capable offensive line, but I believe their 2 best players are their center and their left guard. And the defensive ends were getting no pressure. And I don't believe, if I'm recalling correctly, that their tackles are anything spectacular. And obviously, it won't be a problem again this next week in terms of getting pressure against Youngstown State. But when you're playing against teams like Miami, Ohio State, Penn State, like those kind of schools, you're going to need to be able to generate pressure without blitzing and without relying on guys like Crouch and Holiday and Henderson to get in there and get sacks. Or else the quarterback is just going to sit there and pick apart Ronald Williams and Kalen Gervin. And that they need to scheme something up and do some stunts or something to improve that because or maybe Tank Brown, the more he progresses, maybe can emerge there as a guy that can produce immediately. But that is something that kind of worries me going forward. I don't think it should be the reason that they'll lose any games that they should win or anything like that because it's manageable enough to the point where they still get some hurries in here and there. But to get like actual multiple sacks from a defensive lineman this year in a game, that I don't know if that's something they can do. So that to me, go ahead.
Maybe from the defensive tackle position, I thought Jalen Hunt was good before he went out injured.
Okay.
He made a lot of really good plays, and then I thought Simeon Barrow, like he had a great first game. I think he's definitely someone, and Mallory Slade. So I thought the defensive tackles did good, and the defensive
Yeah.
ends did a good job against the run and holding the edge, which was a problem last year. So you like to see that. And like I
Yeah.
said, I mean, there's flashes where they were getting good pressure, but like you want it to be
Right.
consistent, and
Yeah.
like that was what we talked about before the season of saying if
Right.
there's an Achilles heel, it's can we get to the quarterback defensively, and
Yeah.
that's still a question. And I think I give Northwestern credit. I think the best thing that they do is develop their offensive line. So,
Right.
and it's hard to tell, week one, be like, all right,
True.
is this a good
True.
line? Is this? So we're
Yeah.
still figuring that out. I do think
Yeah.
if I go with Northwestern's the players they've gotten and the success they've had there as a program with this offensive line coach. I'm guessing that this will probably be a maybe not a top tier offensive line in the Big Ten, but I think it'll be in the upper echelon of it. So I guess you will probably find out that we got a great tester to figure out what they needed to work on, which is obviously, like you said, they've got to get pressure from the ends when they send for, and that's the big thing on defense. I think is if you do that, then obviously everything else gets real simple. Just like on offense, if you can run block, all of a sudden Jay Johnson's play calls look good when Kenneth
Right.
Walker's taking it 75 yards.
Yeah. Definitely agree there. So, is there any other observations that you want to touch on about Northwestern before we move on to Youngstown State?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. I mean, I'd just say that everybody talked about Kenneth Walker for good reason. He had a great
Hmm.
game, but I thought we saw a lot of really good things from a lot of young guys, like we mentioned, Halliday's, Barrow, and some of those guys. So I think there's a lot of encouraging signs going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that the people at Walter Camp don't watch football on Fridays, and they're not able to read box scores or anything like that. But it was good to see that today Kenneth Walker was named the Maxwell Award Offensive Player of the Week, and the Maxwell is one of those main awards that's in that series of the college football awards presented by the Football Foundation. So similar stature as the Walter Camp, just with much better people evaluating who gets the awards, evidently. So good for Kenneth Walker there. I guess moving on to Youngstown State now, the first thing that people would look at is who they played last week and how they did. So in that regard, they don't strike much fear as they only beat the let's see, is it the University of, I don't know. They played Incarnate Word, who are the Cardinals. They're an FCS school, and they beat them by 3 in overtime. They won 44-41. So offense seems to have a heartbeat, but if you're giving up 41 points to Incarnate Word, I don't know if that's a good sign before you go ahead and play this reinvented revolutionary offense of Michigan State. No, that's obviously sarcasm, but I don't think that's a good sign. And yes, it is the University of Incarnate Word, if anyone was wondering. Don't ask me where they're located. That I don't know. But so Youngstown State, they're a school that Michigan State should win the game against. I don't think that it'll be as huge of a blowout as it could be if they were to play the traditional rotations, because I think that they're going to make it a huge priority to rotate a ton and get as much tape as on as many players as possible. Trying to see what pieces they have for down the season, who's capable of playing at this level this season, and just a lot of scouting work is going to be done by Michigan State. And we already saw how many guys are rotating against Northwestern. They will be rotating even more against Youngstown State, in my opinion. So I think they'll get out to a sizable lead early, and they'll maintain that lead to halftime. And I think after that, you'll just see a lot of rotational pieces come in, and that'll be the reason they don't win this game by 50 or something crazy like that. But yeah, I obviously think that there's a huge talent disparity, and I don't think this is a game that they'll be sweating out. But yeah, I mean, anything else you want to add there, Corey, about this matchup against Youngstown State?
Yeah, basically for me, it's obviously accomplish what you go in there with your game plan, with the coaches and players, accomplish those things. Obviously, number one, stay healthy. Like you don't want to lose anybody ever, but especially to these type
Yeah,
of games. And then just see as many guys as you can. you're going to see a lot of true freshmen probably play today that will redshirt, but with the NCAA allowing you to play, I believe it's 4 games
Right.
before losing your red shirt, this is a game that you're going to see a lot of those guys who necessarily aren't going to play too many games more beyond this, if any. Uh, it allows them to get their feet wet, just so that when they come in next year and they're counted on, uh, they've been there, they've been out there with the crowd and all of that stuff. So you'll see a lot of those guys. As far as the score, I think, like, I know they'll rotate, but I just think Michigan State will probably still dominate them pretty good, just because
Yeah.
you got a huge stable of running backs, and you should be able to power that team and just run the ball down their throat for the most part.
Yeah.
And then looking at their stats, it appears like they gave up a lot of passing yards to Bishop Sycamore, and so that's not a great sign if you're a smaller school. So I mean, you'll probably see Peyton Thorne make a lot of big plays while he's out there.
Yeah.
And then your backup is Russo, who's going to make good plays because he wants to prove that he needs to be out there. And when you're dropping off to him, you're not, dropping off to some guy that's never been out there. The guy's got a lot of passing yards under his belt, lots of touchdowns. So I don't think you necessarily get any reprieve from the quarterback and running back position beyond the first couple the starters there or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think against Northwestern you played 10 offensive linemen. This one you'll maybe play 14 or 15. I think you'll see Gino and Kevin Wigington and Ethan Boyd probably get out there to get your feet wet a little bit if they're ready. I mean, I don't obviously see them in practice. You're going to see James Ahanaba will play. I don't know if he played against Northwestern. Jacob Asaya. So you'll see the offensive line stretch out, which could lead to the offense not doing as much. But I think you just have good depth at the skill positions. So if the offensive line's at least adequate, they should be able to keep rolling. And then on offense for Youngstown, they ran the ball, I think, like 60 times, and they didn't pass. I don't even think they threw 15 passes in the game. And that's not generally a recipe for success for a small school when they're coming up into the Big Ten to play a Power 5 team or those Power 5 type matchups.
Yeah.
Usually the smaller teams that cause issues in those situations are those ones with the hurry-up offenses that get the ball out quick and make plays in the passing game.
Western Kentucky.
Yeah, where you're not going to see Youngstown run the ball. Like if they ran the ball, they're probably not getting 60 snaps off, let alone 60 runs. And if they ran it 60 times against Michigan State, I don't think they'd score a lot of points. I think Michigan State's weakness isn't defending the run.
Correct.
So that's not a positive for Youngstown State in any of those situations. So I think for me, if I'm the coaches, this is our game plan. We're going to run the ball. We're going to make big plays, and we're going to create turnovers on defense.
Yeah, that I just noticed that in the box score, their quarterback Demetric Crenshaw, in an overtime game, ended with 12 passing attempts. So if their plan is to come in here and just run the ball all over Michigan State, who is willing and able to recycle guys and keep them fresh all game long, and that are all known for being good against the run, then they might need to open up their playbook a little bit before they realize that the whole game went by and they didn't have anything more than a stagnant offense with a few first downs here and there. So that is definitely something to watch for, and maybe they might have to get away from their identity once they even just watch the Northwestern Michigan State film and notice that they might not have a lot of success that way. But from Michigan State side of things, I would almost hope that they don't kind of put anything on tape that would be worth watching for other schools in terms of looks and plays and formations. Obviously, they might have already done so during the Northwestern game. I don't know what percentage of the playbook they opened up during that game. There's not really any way for me to know that, so maybe it's all a moot point. But if that was already kind of vanilla, I would keep it that way. Because like a lot of coaches did in this offseason in the NFL, or sorry, in the preseason, what they do is, at least with the Eagles, I know defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, he has about he has countless looks on defense that they installed in preseason practices. But anytime they would play a preseason game, he would have basically 2 or 3 looks, just do cover 2 press man the whole game, and just not show a single thing. And on offense, they would call maybe 7 or 8 different route concepts. They would just do slants, curls, streaks, and that would just be every single play. And obviously, you don't want to come in there and like just be looking past them and just not playing to your potential. But the more vanilla they can keep it, the better. Because I don't think you need Miami knowing how to defend anything exotic that you plan to use against them that game. So I would hope to keep it as vanilla as possible, even if they don't cover the spread. By doing so, I would prioritize keeping it as vanilla as possible as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, same goes for the defense too, because I think you'll want to catch them off guard to create turnovers to kind of make up for maybe the speed and talent levels still. Because I think, like, I watched the Alabama and Miami game, and Miami got destroyed. But what I took out of watching that game is that I already know who the national champion is this year. Yeah. I watched that game. I watched Ohio State. I watched Clemson, Georgia. Saw all the top teams, and Alabama is head and shoulders above everybody right now. On both sides of the ball. So you can't really be like, oh well. So I mean that doesn't tell us a lot, except that if we play with athletes like Alabama, then we'll be good to go. But so obviously you find their holes, because Michigan State does have the running backs and the wide receivers to make plays from that game. But I mean, honestly, I think when you're sticking to Youngstown, I think you don't have to get too crazy on either side of the ball to control it. And
I wouldn't bring any exotic blitzes, even if that's a weakness for this team, and I would just keep that under wraps until the week after. Just rush 4. Maybe bring some standard outside linebacker blitzes, no stunts or anything like that Derek King can be watching the next week.
You heard Mel Tucker say that we got to get pressure with 4, which means that's what his emphasis this week in practice is with Ron Burton and Kevin Vickerson, and you'll probably see Mel over there a little bit as getting those 4 defensive linemen on the field to create havoc.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that pretty much covers it with Youngstown State. The other thing that was news today, and I guess kind of yesterday, was the whole name, image, likeness side of things that is coming out with United Wholesale Mortgage. So kind of giving a full picture, I heard that this was going to happen, but not in as much detail. About 2.5 weeks ago, there's someone that kind of was familiar with the process, even from before United Wholesale Mortgage got involved, and he kind of let me know that UWM was getting involved, and they were going to try to take advantage of getting their name out there in a way that would flood social media in high volume numbers, and that the brand awareness was something that they were going to get in exchange for paying everybody in the football and basketball programs. And yesterday, once I saw Chester Kimbrough's tweet, because he kind of jumped the gun and beat the rest of his teammates on that announcement, I knew that means the deal had been wrapped up, so I kind of put my teaser out there about the headline soon. And then sure enough, there were a few more tweets throughout the rest of the day, and then I woke up this morning and saw that UWM had put out a press release, so I hit publish on the story. But they basically got that news out there everywhere, because the Bleacher Report college football Twitter page was talking about it. Obviously,
National
our 24/7.
24/7.
Yep, national 24/7. So basically, the whole reason that this was significant is not because $500 a month or $6,000 a year is anything substantial, but it's because of how many players are getting it. And there's walk-ons included in this. It's 133 players, and the fact of the matter is Michigan State is now associated with the only NIL arrangement out there where every single person on football and basketball teams gets money regardless of skill, regardless of position, regardless of playing time. And that right there is a headline in and of itself that national outlets have carried already. And that's something that now you have a random kid in Oregon or Mississippi that when the name Michigan State pops into his head, before he might not have had anything to associate that with, and now he might associate NIL with Michigan State. And it's a perception thing more than a dollar amount thing. And that's why I was excited and was waiting for something like this to become finalized. But I guess they had a lot of obstacles before. And yesterday, I guess they finally kind of got everything ironed out, because part of the huge reason that this was going to take a long time when I first heard about it was because it was really hard for companies to get involved with every single athlete out there without any sort of group licensing dynamic. And they would have to reach out to every athlete individually. And Michigan State, the athletic department, couldn't help smooth this along or bring it together because schools can't get involved. So that was how they originally had to do it. But then Michigan State brought on Brander, which is a platform that Miami, University of North Carolina, Texas, Florida, all these other schools use, and they kind of create a group licensing dynamic. And the players can sign on together, and then UWM doesn't have to go and talk to each player individually because they're kind of signing them on in the group licensing format. So that's kind of what I feel like sped this along. The source didn't say that directly Brander helped smooth this along, but he told me what Brander does in general, and he had told me about this plan before, so I kind of put the two and two together, and that's kind of my little hypothesis is Brander's involvement is kind of what pushed this over the edge. So huge development in my opinion. Corey, now what is your opinion now that I'll finally let you talk instead of rambling on and on?
It creates the floor if you go to Michigan State. Like if you come play football or basketball at Michigan State, you're going to make no less than $6,000. And for, like the quarterbacks, you see some of those big deals. Like that's not a huge deal. But for the offensive linemen, for the kickers, for the defensive guys, like that's a big deal. The walk-ons. So now what happens when you want a preferred walk-on and he knows he can get $6,000 if he comes to Michigan State, and you've seen the success at Michigan State and all over the country where you have these preferred walk-ons that show up here and they end up making it, get to scholarship, and get to the NFL. So, I mean, that's just a leg up there. So, I mean, yeah, it's not the BMWs and the $1 million deals for individuals, but I think it's a big deal for the program because you've created the floor. And now, as we've seen too, there's the Rocket Mortgage. Dan Gilbert, he doesn't ever like to be too outdone by Matt Ishbia and United Wholesale Mortgage. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him shoot something over too to raise that floor even higher, and you're just going to keep doing stuff like that. And then obviously the big guys will get their deals and their cars, but for the program, I think just overall that's huge for the program and recruiting.
Yeah. I would want to add in, though, that so it's been brought to my attention that the Rocket Mortgage companies or anything owned by Dan Gilbert, any of his subsidiaries, anything in his umbrella company, they are not allowed to pay players for NIL purposes unless, or I guess I should say while he's the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, because it violates the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. I don't know if that means he can provide NIL benefits to the football team, but either way, there are other ways for him to get involved. Like, it would be nice to see him put money into the football building. I'm not sure if part of his Rocket Mortgage sponsorship of the basketball team might have been earmarked for the football building, so I don't want to call him out or anything and say, why haven't you donated? But if that's not the case, if he hasn't earmarked anything for the football building yet, I think that would be an opportunity for him to kind of one up Ishbia here if that's something that they're still doing, which they are. That's definitely a dynamic still at play. But yeah, so
same too with like
yeah.
Tom Gores. I think
Hmm.
he needs to come over to Mel Tucker's house and get in the scotch and
Yeah.
write the check because it's time for him to kind of get the ball rolling too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought he was a guy that they'll probably hit up too. And
Hmm.
but yeah, I think overall it just creates a trickle down effect where you're going to see all of these other businesses see what he did and they want to have that too. They want to
Yeah.
be able to have their name out there in a positive light with the athletes and stuff like that. So I think you'll definitely see more jump on whether it's a big name that we're expecting or some of the other
Yeah.
smaller ones.
Yeah, and I think people don't really understand how much more money they might need for the building because again, I don't know how much they already have in the reserve besides Ishbia's money, but just to put it into context, I believe Colorado's new building, the Chicago Tribune cited that it is well over $100 million, according to some sources, even though for tax purposes they marked it down as an $89 million building. And that's Colorado, and I know Oregon State has a building that's kind of up there, and Mississippi State, South Carolina, like these are not schools that are that good, and or that have huge alumni bases, and they have facilities close to $100 million. It all depends how the schools report on it too, because I know if you look at Clemson's, the publicly it'll say that it's a $55 million building, but that's how much the renovation kind of was, and if you're building from scratch, it's kind of different. And if anytime you're building a building from scratch, kind of like Michigan State would be doing for the Tom Izzo football building, even though it's an extension to the first one, it's closer to a total rebuild than it is a renovation. So 32 million is not going to cut it. That's kind of the bottom line. So
Yeah,
hopefully, so
I think
yeah,
they're over 100 already. Uh, from just talking with people, I think they're trying to get closer to that 150, 200 if possible, because you only get a chance to put up a new building so many times, and you want to do it right. So I think that's why, and I've told you guys when you and Steven and me are talking that I think the reason why we haven't saw them break ground and we haven't seen the plans is I don't think they're done raising the money. Like they don't want to cap it at a number that they don't get everything that they want out of it.
right. Yeah, I know for a fact that they're also still raising money. That yeah, I don't want to say much more, but yeah, they're definitely still raising more money. You're 100% right on that. But um, if they're already above 100 million, that would be something else. That would be pretty amazing. So hopefully you're right about that. That'll be rivaling some top facilities out there for sure at that point. Then. So yeah, we'll see what kind of happens there. I know they're close to breaking ground. That's what everybody says every
Yeah,
time that you ask them, but. Eventually, it'd be nice to actually see a shovel go into the ground so these
yeah,
2023 recruits can feel it's imminent.
yeah. That I mean, it's not getting any warmer, so I mean,
Yeah,
you're not gonna break ground necessarily in
when it's
December. So
frozen. Yeah.
like I think you keep raising money. Like I think I mentioned, was it on this show or on the message board? I think it's the message board where Mark D'Antonio, while
Hmm.
he was putting in his word for Alan Haller to be the AD, he also raised a lot of money. Like he went around and not only was he giving his support to Allen and trying to get those people to get behind him with that which they did. He was also raising a lot of money for the football program. So now you got Allen, like we mentioned. He's going to create a new energy. You see the surge that he got from the alumni, the former players, all that stuff. So I mean, I think you're gonna see a lot of money, new money come in from that. And like he said at his press conference yesterday, they're going to do things that we haven't seen here, and raising
Yeah.
money is a big part of that. Not that Michigan State's been bad at that in the past, but I think Michigan State as a program or an athletic department, they took those hits, and now they're dusting themselves off and they're ready to go back to what they were before that, where you saw them be innovative, uh, where they're playing on the aircraft carriers and all that other stuff. I think you're going to start to see Michigan State kind of go back into the spotlight and say, we've learned from it. Hopefully, we never see anything like this again or anywhere near this again from our department. But now it's time to go forward while not forgetting the past and kind of put yourself back in the spotlight and try to get those national games and raising money, facilities that gets you the recruits. Everybody that's in that building, that football building, knows that. Alan Haller, who played football, knows that. So I think when we do finally see the plans and we do finally see the shovels hit the ground, I think everybody's going to be really impressed with what they came up with.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Alan Haller was the guy, like the facilities plan was like kind of his own personal project. So having him continue as the athletic director here, as opposed to finding an external guy and Alan taking off somewhere else, this move kind of even helps from a huge perspective, from the facilities perspective, in a huge manner. So yeah, exciting times for sure. And like you were saying, how Alan was hinting at it during the press conference that big things were ahead. Kind of speaking, to me, it kind of seemed like he was speaking from a tone of he knew big things were coming, not just making promises of hope. Like these guys are kind of sitting on some promising things here that they're just putting the final touches on and getting some final donations for. So interesting times indeed with all these guys in the Michigan State alumni base helping out, some in terms of NIL, others hopefully in terms of building donations, but no doubt about it that there's exciting times ahead for Michigan State. Anything else, Corey?
Yeah, I guess at the end of the show, I'll challenge the fan base that you guys want to have all these nice things. So Youngstown State this Saturday, it's the first home game that most of you have been able to go to in person. So even though it's not a huge game, go out and fill the stadium. Find your friends, drag them along with you, drag your family. I think there's no excuse for that stadium to not be over 3/4 full for this game. Just when you look at all the dynamics, it's really your first chance to go out there and support Mel Tucker in person. So that would be my challenge to the fan base, is to go beyond the support from the keyboards and get your butts in the stadium on Saturday and make it one of those environments that the national media and the national announcers and all of that are talking about. And then show up early to go to the Big Ten tailgate thing. Just whatever positive light you can put on the program is going to help them get to where you ultimately want it. And you hold the keys to a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, and this year recruits are going to be visiting stadiums again, so whatever environment that they see created by the fans is only going to help their recruitment. So
and you get to find out the new music that they run up to.
Yeah. Yeah. But all right, guys, that does it for this week's episode of the Spartan Beat. Make sure you go ahead and check us out on SpartanTailgate.com. Subscribe if you haven't already. But until next week.